Welcome to Re-Shrinking, the podcast where we review episodes of the show Shrinking on Apple TV and discuss the creation, relevance, and real-life situations highlighted on the show. I'm your host, Carina Cooper.
And I'm your host, Hurley Feather. And today we are talking about, drumroll please, Season 1, Episode 1, Coin Flip, and creator Brett Goldstein.
Very exciting.
Yes. So what that means is, as we discuss through this first episode, we're going to parallel that with some fun little trivia here and there about the show's creators. For instance, Carina, did you know that Brett Goldstein, who does appear in the show in some later seasons...
No spoilers, Holly.
Oh, thank you. Yes, of course. He also appears on the show Ted Lasso as
Roy fucking Kent, right?
Roy fucking Kent.
I did know that, but I didn't know all this other stuff that you're going to share with us.
Oh, I'm excited to share. I'm so excited that you're in my house. This is like the funnest thing. So we've recorded a few episodes this week, came back to re-record the pilot, and this is our first time doing it in person.
Yep.
And depending on how this goes, maybe the last, or maybe we'll just get better at it. So if it's bad, tell us how to fix it. We would appreciate your input.
We need all the help we can get. But also we're learning as we go, and this is a great opportunity for us to get better at something.
Yeah, it's really quite fun because, at our age, you always want to learn something new and get better at something. Otherwise, it's just a sleigh ride to dementia.
I know, right? You have to keep your mind engaged.
That's right, especially after menopause ladies. I mean, they don't tell you that in the books, but it's true. But, not to hold on to youth, But that said, I think of Brett Goldstein as being my boyfriend. He's like my he's everybody's TV boyfriend. Even Brene Brown has a crush on him, right? You cannot get better than Brett Goldstein. Okay. Now, Brett Goldstein, right, in addition to being one of the show's creator and a writer on the show, does appear on the show. But not only was he Roy Kent in Ted Lasso, he was also a writer on that show.
That's incredible. I did not know that.
I think it is super cool. And I know you also had such a crush on Roy Kent.
I do.
Alone.
I mean, when my son asked me who I liked on Ted Lasso, I'm like, Roy Kent.
Oh, he's the best, man. He's here, he's there, he's every fucking where. So spoiler alert, he was on both shows. And what's interesting is Bill Lawrence is the creator on both of these shows. Now, you might remember Bill Lawrence from things like Scrubs.
Right, Scrubs. Mm-hmm.
But I also found out in one of our more recent episodes, which we'll get to talk about a little bit throughout this, that he was also the creator on the Drew Carey Show, which was very formative for me. So, I mean, he's been out there for a while, and I bet getting to work with Bill Lawrence was super exciting for Goldstein.
Yeah.
Right? Like on his first show out of the gate on Ted Lasso, and then coming into creating the show and having that advocate was probably pretty huge, right?
Truly.
So, I mean, just shrinking everywhere. And you can see as we're doing this, one of the things we learn as we do this research is these people crossed over on so many projects. And you think about what wouldn't have existed if certain people hadn't met.
I know. And once you start paying attention to it, you're like, oh, they're there. They did this, they did that. And it's remarkable.
Yeah, it's kind of like Roy Kent's theme song, but for each person who created the show.
I know.
So this is very exciting. So I think maybe it's time.
I think it might be time.
Let's dive in. Okay, here we go. So we always like to start with a therapist voice. Carina, how are you?
I am well, Holly. Thank you so much for asking. It's such a joy to be here in your home. And it's exciting. I think that what if we really like this and we want to do this every time?
We may have to re-record all of our first episodes.
Oh,
all of our first episodes. Yeah, that's a lot of work. So maybe we'll just do all of season two. Yeah, in person.
That might be a good idea.
Well, and then we could also, of course, if you're joining us for this is your first episode. I think we're thinking about kicking it off with a live stream from this very location.
We are.
There's a big TV right off screen that you guys can't even see. So then you could join us for a live stream of season 3, episode 1.
Yes.
And that can be very fun too.
We're
So if
very
we really
excited.
like it, we'll get to do a lot of stuff here, hopefully.
Right.
That'll be good. Hopefully it's not too far of a drive for you, too.
It's not. It's not bad at all.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. In our original first episode recording, it was right after my birthday. And so I do mention this nerdy fandom several times in our other episodes. So I'm going to ask, like, I'm going to act like, you know, what I did this weekend was what I did that weekend.
Okay. I would like to ask you, Holly, how are you?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. You know, I turned 45 recently, and I think it's good to really, you know, you racked up those years. You earned them.
Right.
You should talk about them with pride, right? Everyone you live through, that's another season you played and you weren't on the bench. That's a good thing. And so I did it big this year because I had initially in 2020, I had planned for this massive girls trip, right? We were going to go to Texas. I had a whole B&B rented because this is back when I was like making real money, you know, before the economy was broken. And I was going to take like all my girlfriends, and we were going to do yoga, and we were going to do meditation, and we were going to drink, and we were going to try all the little distilleries, and we were going to sit in the pool and have all these lovely meals. But the pandemic happened, and so I didn't get that 40th birthday.
Oh, man.
So instead, on my 45th birthday, my other BFF, Kristen, who Carina also knows, came over to my house and made me all 7 Hobbit meals while we watched all 3 extended edition Lord of the Rings films. And then because that wasn't enough, you know, we couldn't just say Dayenu at the end of that, right? We had to add on more. I wanted to watch Practical Magic after that so that we could have midnight margaritas right at midnight on the day that I turned 45.
Perfect.
It was perfect. I mean, you know, find you someone like Carina who can match your level of nerdiness about something,
right.
And then just start accruing those friends.
It's great. It's so fun.
It's really the best. Mm-hmm. And so this is me nerding out over several weeks. That was me nerding out over one day with a friend who just went as hard as I did, and much harder because she had to cook all the food and time it, because there's timing, right? You like when you're at the Green Dragon, you have certain timing. You have lunch and second breakfast, dinner, you know, and it all matters. Like 11sies, you got to have like at a certain time. So we literally started the movies at 8 o'clock in the morning and didn't stop until midnight.
Sounds so fun, but also really exhausting. Like, and I also have to ask you, how do you feel now that you're 45?
Good, except I will say the perimenopause journey has been a rough one. I know, you and I have talked about this, but like the last year was like full of health challenges and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what it really tells you when you go through something like that is like what you're not going to live without anymore. You know, like what you're going to like live to the hilts, because my dad died right at 70 or just a little before. So the way I clock it, I got like 20, 25 years left in me. And that's all I got. I got a lot to get done. And I think doing this podcast with you was a lot about like, how do I want to spend those like last 25 years? I want to do stuff like this.
It's really rewarding. And I was thinking about that also. My son recommended I read a book called 4,000 Weeks.
Ooh.
And it's about how the average lifespan is only 4,000 weeks, and that you've got to pick and choose what you want to be using that energy and that time that you have left. And it really put me in an interesting frame of mind. I started to get rid of projects that didn't sing to me. You know, I just needed to go, well, am I going to spend one of my 4,000 weeks on that, or 3 or 4 of my 4,000 weeks on that project that I don't really care about anymore? Or how am I going to do this? And it makes you realize kind of what's really important to you.
Oh my God, you're so right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we're coming into this with. So I hope you guys enjoyed this journey with us, because I will say for both of us, you know, Carina has made films. I was a producer in my 20s for film and TV. You'd never be able to tell by the setup. I was not a lighting designer, so apologies in advance for how many shadows we have. But I will say that like, it was formative. It's been formative to watch these episodes and to talk about what these people do. Because yes. I think for both of us, like we're both writers, and the writing team on this, as you will see, is incredible. And so every week when we do this and take this apart, it's kind of like us nerding about our favorite thing, you know, that both of us have done some of, but none of us have done to this level. And it's like a masterclass every week.
It's like a masterclass in all the things: wardrobe, music, writing, acting, directing. It's just like every episode.
Oh, it's insane. So we'll kick into this one. This episode is Coin Flip, and the director for this one was James Ponsoldt, and the writers were Bill Lawrence, Jason Segel, and Brett Goldstein,
BG.
who is our feature of the week. BG, as I live and breathe, my boyfriend, my screen boyfriend, and Brene Brown's screen boyfriend. And apparently he is her real life cheat, by the way, with her husband. And they recently met in person, and I am just dying to ask Brene, like, did it go down? How did that go down at home? I know she would never tell us. She's a classy broad.
Yeah.
But like, I really want to know. So speaking of love and things that we love, let's get into this week's topic. It really would have been easy for us to go with Jason Segel, right? Because he's the star of the show. He's the face of the project.
Character.
Right? Easy peasy. And of course I didn't do that because I'm way more excited to talk about Brett Goldstein.
Right.
Because I feel like, look, Segel has an audience. Like, people have followed him since Freaks and Geeks. Goldstein, he was a slower burn. He was a comedian in Britain first, and then he came over here. And so, I mean, I'm super excited about it because, Carina, I am an Anglophile.
I mean, I guess I knew that about you, Holly.
I do love British stuff. I love panel shows. I wrote a screenplay, which recently I just found out I'm going to do a live stream reading of, by the way.
Oh,
next
amazing.
month. So we'll have to announce it on our thing. It'll be so silly. But mostly it's Taskmaster. I really love the show Taskmaster. And I know what you guys are thinking out there. Okay, Holly, you were talking about Brett Goldstein. Why are you taking me to Taskmaster? Well, that's how I discovered Brett Goldstein in a very weird and roundabout way. Obviously, I had seen Ted Lasso, right? And watched Ted Lasso in between Taskmaster episodes. But via Taskmaster, I discovered all these podcasts with people like James Acaster, Nish Kumar, and Ed Gamble, who are all three British comedians, much more famous there than they are here. And through them, I would hear them talk about how Brett Goldstein is just this absolute gem. And I want to believe this because of fucking Roy Kent, right? He's here, he's there, he's every fucking where, Roy Kent. And I found his podcast. So Brett Goldstein has a podcast called Films to be Buried With. And for the listeners at home, I would love to believe that right now I'm drawing Carina like a poster board with red dots in between each one of these. Obviously, I'm not. But I am kind of obsessed with how much this man really deeply loves movies. I mean, he's like us. He shares this fandom, and he is living his wildest dream, and you get to see that. And I think it shows in his writing. I think he also does a really good job writing love into situations where a lot of times people are really messy and complicated. And I think his trademark is sort of bringing, like, almost like how you would say the quiet part out loud. Like sometimes you see his characters literally just tell you out loud what they're struggling with in a moment where we wish people would do that in real life, instead of, deflecting or projecting. Yeah. It's like sometimes these characters just like say the thing out loud. And I think it makes his writing it's soothing. It gives you like a balm to your soul. Even when his characters are being absolute dicks, you can see them trying. And there's a vulnerability there that's very appealing. And so I'm kind of obsessed with that. And I think he's really great. And I think it's something Bill Lawrence also prides. You see that sometimes in Scrubs, where they take these sort of super hyper realistic situations so that you can allow these characters to say things they wouldn't say in real life. And I think him meeting Bill Lawrence is kismet, or maybe serendipity.
I agree.
And so he did co-write this first episode and got wonderful praise from Harrison Ford, which we'll talk about later on the writing for this. And I feel like it is really the effort of the whole writing team. And you'll see, we'll see some trademarks and some thumbprints as we go through this. But I think that one of the lines that really seems like something that Brett Goldstein gets out of the writer's room was the moment in which Liz says to Jimmy, "I'm sorry, I have to ask you, is this you forever?" And then Jimmy answers honestly, "I don't know." And I think as you start to follow this man's career, you're going to see that kind of as a trademark to everything he does, is people on a journey and other people visualizing that journey with them and saying the quiet part out loud. And some other places you can check him out. He actually had a really brief cameo in the Marvel movie in Thor Love and Thunder as Hercules. He was also in the reboot of Fraggle Rock recently. He was on Sesame Street. He did a voiceover for the Garfield movie, and he has a new movie coming out. Well, it came out this past year, but just kind of scraping the edge there on Prime. That's called All of You, and he co-wrote it.
It
So,
looks beautiful. I'm gonna have to watch it.
oh my God, we should have a special app where we watch All of You.
That would be great.
That'd be really
Yeah.
fun. Well, all that said, I think we should finally get into this episode. That's probably what you're waiting for at home.
I mean, let's jump in.
Yay!
So the opening scene, we find Liz and her husband Derek. This is, of course, Kristen Miller, wife of Bill Lawrence. And Derek is played by the wonderful Ted McGinley, who, I mean, I just fall in love with him every week. It's so fun.
More and more in love every week. I think that's what they
Yeah.
intended for Derek.
Oh.
Like, they let us have this beautiful slow burn of, like, you like him immediately, and then you just start to love him and love him.
And you start to see his complexity, even though he's really, at the beginning of the series, really, these kind of funny, humorous breaks that he has. And so they're in bed trying to sleep in the middle of the night, and Derek sleepily refuses Liz's insistence that he get up and take his turn to get their neighbor to quiet down. And so Liz has to do it because he just refuses. He kind of cuddles into his pillow. Won't you do it? Or whatever he says. It's really, and so she does. And she goes out to find Jimmy, Jason Segel, playing air piano by his pool with two women splashing around in the pool at 3 a.m. Your basic vibe of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Jimmy is clearly out of control. And this opening scene shows us that Liz is really pretty involved in his life.
Oh yeah, and it's so telling that, like, we as the viewer, you see that it's like, you can tell it's 3 o'clock in the morning, or at least it's late at night, because you have Liz and her husband in bed, and Liz coming out clearly there to scold him. But you can also tell that that maybe there's not this like fury that it would be if like this was the first time it happened, kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
or
she's
like
not
if she's
surprised, really. She's just disappointed.
Yeah. And then of course Jimmy, just completely tone deaf, is like, Liz, I'm playing air piano, and just having the time of his life. And she points out, like, hey, what's in the bowl, Jimmy?
Yeah, what's in the bowl, Jimmy?
And he what are the bowls? Oh, pretzels. And then she's like, what's in the other bowl? Pills. It's pills. He's like, Adderall and, oh God, it's something you shouldn't mix with Adderall.
Right. No, you shouldn't.
And there was alcohol everywhere, right? So like, and the two girls in the pool, he said, don't worry, their bathing suits look like underwear, but they're really bathing suits. And you're like, no, they're not, and he introduces them, and she kind of pokes around with, are these sex workers? And he's like, I haven't had to pay them yet. And it's a rough scene. It is not a good, it's a great intro to Jimmy, but it's also not a great moment.
It tells us a lot. And there's this one moment where he tells Liz to quiet down because Alice is sleeping. And she's like, you're telling me to quiet down? And Alice, the viewer's like, who's Alice? Mm-hmm. But we will find out.
Yeah, and you definitely get the feeling from that moment, because he like points upstairs, so you get the feeling there is family in the house to whom he is also beholden, and it all of a sudden takes his behavior from super like inappropriate from a neighbor perspective to red flag.
Yes, and then the next morning, Jimmy watches from the yard the two sex workers leave from the driveway, and then he's sprayed by the sprinkler, and it just like epitomizes that he's not doing well. He's not batting very well. And we get to meet Alice, who is played by Lukita Maxwell, and she's incredible. And in later episodes, you'll learn a lot more about Lukita herself and her life and how she got involved in acting. And she plays Jimmy's teenage daughter. And Jimmy's in a bad way. He's hungover. He's in the kitchen, kind of holding his head, and Alice is cleaning up the kitchen around him, intermittently scowling at him, and she's not amused.
Not at all. He's like, he literally says he's sorry, and she goes,
same shit, bro. And he's like, whoa, my daughter just called me bro.
Well, she's literally recycling huge empty bottles of alcohol.
Yeah.
And she's 17, and you're-ish. You get the feeling she's in high school. Like, she's like getting her backpack. She's going to practice. She has like, and she hands him overnight oats. So like, clearly she's accustomed to like making breakfast for both of them.
She's the one doing caregiving.
Yeah.
And it's pretty sad. So she announces Liz will be taking her to school, and it's just clear that Jimmy has not been parenting at all, and that Liz has been picking up the slack.
Yeah, they did so much with these opening two scenes. I mean, you're just you know so much about this family already, and you don't know for how long this has been going on, but it's not the first time.
Yeah, exactly. And the next thing is all about Jimmy's dysfunctional morning trying to get to his day. His car won't start, of course. He clumsily grabs Alice's bicycle and pink helmet, and he hurriedly rides to uh, to where he's going, and it's just chaos.
And it's super indicative that Jimmy is in trouble, psychiatric health wise. He's like really not there. They couldn't spell it out any more plainly than these first three scenes.
The bike chain breaks, a bunch of stuff happens, and he finally gets to his destination, and we see the sign Rhodes Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Center. This gives very much that Jimmy is going to see his therapist. He enters the office to see a man in a suit giving therapist vibes. But then the big reveal, Jimmy works there as a therapist, and this man is his first patient of the day.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, Jason Segel is the main character, right? And the show is called Shrinking. So you have a little bit of a spoiler going in. But Carina's right. Like, if you had no intro to the show and you had seen the morning and the evening that man just had, you'd be like, oh, thank God he's going to therapy. And then you're like, oh, no, this man's going to give therapy to somebody? Ooh, buddy, buckle in. This is going to be rough.
And then we cut to the opening sequence with the theme music, a song by Ben Gibbard and Tom Howe. I love it. Frightening Fishes.
And the cool brain maze animated graphics I've grown to love watching. And I was listening to a podcast recently or watching some YouTube thing, and Jason Segel said that all of the characters are secretly represented in that theme and the animation.
Oh, yeah, everyone.
And I'm like, secretly? It's
Yeah.
like, I think Jason, it's pretty obvious.
Yes, that's a secret, bro.
Yeah, it's
Same
not
old
a
shit,
secret,
bro.
but it is fun to find them and go, oh, that's Paul, that's Alice. I think it's Alice on the tall thing.
It is. It's so great. But yeah, it's not at all subtle. You can tell, right? Like, let us know if you disagree with that. I remember being pleased when I discovered that, but I also remember I discovered that pretty much the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then Jimmy is at work. He's got his head in the kitchen sink and he's running water over it. And his coworker, Gabby, the astonishing Jessica Williams.
Jay Willie in the house, a dope queen in the house, physically in the house.
She moves around him to set her cup in the sink, and we see Jimmy struggling to keep interested and invested through a montage of his patients. Most notable among them is Grace, and that's Grace played by Heidi Gardner.
Oh my God, Heidi Gardner from SNL. What a blessing.
She's beautiful to watch in this. You see how she's struggling and trying to maintain. And she's describing for Jimmy how awfully her husband treats her by constantly putting her down and calling her names. Wardrobe note. She's intentionally in very, very cleavagey outfit. It's distracting.
Oh yeah.
And one of her, it's unbalanced. It's
one of her boobs. The wardrobe department on this is just next level great. They're so good, and they're great with everybody, but you notice it so vividly with Heidi Gardner's character because they literally show you where she is with her husband through wardrobe cues. And a big one is she wears these little girl kind of floral dresses, but they're very revealing, especially in the cleavage. And then like later, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, but later we get to see her in what she wears to work, and it's a really nice suit, except that the skirt is like intentionally very, very short. And so it's this way of saying like, I don't want to draw too much of the male gaze, but I have to put certain things on display.
Right.
And I think the quote that goes along with this, I didn't notice the first time we watched it, but I noticed again last night, which is she says her husband, like, no one would love you if you didn't have such great tits.
Yeah.
And then you see it in every outfit they dress her with after that. You can tell what's going on with her husband by where her cleavage is placed.
Yeah. She's demonstrating what she feels like her worth is.
Via
And
her
that's what
clothing.
it is physically. Yeah.
It's incredibly done. It's so
It
well done.
is. And Jimmy sort of loses it with Grace this day. He's like, he starts to tell her in loud and aggressive way, really, that her husband is emotionally abusive and that he's not trying to change. And if she doesn't leave him and go stay with her sister, he's going to stop being her therapist.
Yeah, because ultimatums, especially from your therapist, super healthy.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's, well, and it looks like he realizes he made a mistake because he's like, oh, what did I just do? But then when he starts to almost, you can see that he's going to start to say, okay, well, maybe that's too much to ask or something. She goes, okay. And he's like, wait, what? And then she leaves she agrees to this and
Yeah.
leaves the office.
Yeah, he stops, and then it's almost like he doubles down in a way, or you don't know if he's going to apologize or double down. And then she just goes, okay. And you're like, what?
So then we cut to Gabby discussing with Paul, the inimitable Harrison Ford, how important water is.
She literally says, "Do you know what percentage of your body is made of water?" And Harrison Ford goes, "I know what percentage of me doesn't give a shit." You know, it was such a Jay Willie joke. It's like, oh my god, it had her character and her fingerprints like all over it, and how she is unfazed and her response is like equally brutal. Also establishes this dynamic between them that is so. Oof, we're gonna get into Gabby later because I think she's the heart of the show. But keep going.
So Jimmy enters while they're having this badinage. He expresses that they should make their patients change because they know what's best for them. And of course, Paul vehemently disagrees and scolds Jimmy as that they as therapists don't take people's autonomy away from them. Paul tells him that they are not psychological vigilantes, and Gabby loves this. She thinks it sounds badass. She's hilarious. She agrees with Paul, but she also thinks it sounds pretty badass. So Jimmy kind of gets pissed and storms out to see his next patient.
And that moment is so interesting because that's the first time you get to meet Harrison Ford, and it's the second time you see Gabby, but the first time you see them having like a real conversation, and you get to see the dynamic of the three of them. They also take, and I don't know how involved, I know Jay Willie was really involved in building this character, but when I was rewatching this, like John was like, I could do a squat that deep. It looks really impressive until you think her heels are up like 3 inches. I was like, she's on 3-inch heels. Can you imagine doing that with old people knees? Like, and so like they take great pains, and she has to like, because her water bottle is so huge, she has to squat all the way down. And this is like your first group intro of the three of them. And I just thought, oh my God, that's so classic. Because that was a choice. Like it was a
Definite choice. And then as Harrison Ford's walking past her on the way out, he says, you know, Virginia Woolf tried to drown herself too.
Because and which of course gives you an insight into their relationship and their dynamic, as well as, you know, this isn't the first conversation that's happened about how hydrated Gabby is.
Right.
And that and you wonder why.
Yeah. So later, Jimmy runs into Gabby and she ditches a patient referral on him, a soldier who has PTSD who keeps getting arrested for assault. Jimmy's first session with Sean, played by the absolutely wonderful Luke Tenney,
Oh my God.
goes poorly. Uh, Sean catches Jimmy yawning and grows super upset and leaves. He slams the door. Jimmy knows he fucked that initial session up badly. He throws down his notes in frustration, like, fuck. So it's not a good look for Jimmy at all, and he actually knows it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he kind of earned it. Like, what did he think was gonna? I mean, you know, this is of course, you know, when you're in a spiral, right? You know, he, of course, what did he think was gonna happen? He was staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning with, you know, at his pool doing drugs, and you know, you just like, you fool.
Yeah.
Like that's not what adults do, but also like, it is if you're in free fall, right?
Yeah. And that look on Sean's face when he sees him yawning, he's like,
well, because Sean's there for such a serious thing. Sean keeps beating the shit out of people, and he doesn't know how to make it stop.
Yeah.
And he shares that that's, you know, why he's there, and that like his mom was, you know, like that it's upsetting for his family, and he wants it to stop, you know. And I mean, as much as it's almost impossible to get behind a barrier for someone like that, because clearly you see in his whole face, this is why Luke Tenney's such a gift, right? You see in his whole face that he is not ready to discuss this, really.
Yeah.
But like, he does give Jimmy the in of like, this is why I'm here, this is what I want, you know? And Jimmy is just clearly like not up to snuff. And Sean calls him out right off the bat.
Yeah.
Like, would that we could all be so good in therapy of just like holding other people accountable and of visualizing the situation. Like there's something so special about this kid from Jump Street.
Yeah, for sure. And you're kind of like thinking, what was Gabby thinking, ditching this referral on someone so incapable right now?
Also,
You know?
what was Gabby? I mean, I know it's so crazy too, especially what we learn about Gabby as we go through, right?
Yeah.
But like, you do wonder why she's like dishing him on, why she does this. And you also wonder, because of what she said earlier about representation, you know, why are you leaving this young black man with this white guy who's in a full fucking free fall?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure it probably is a Nico related reason, but but you know, I think, you know, we know that Gabby probably ends up having a really great reason, but it's still really tough to watch.
It is.
Because you're kind of like, he clearly can't handle this, and the patient is the one who will suffer. Yeah. She also pitched it as super easy, and you're like, no one would hear that description.
With PTSD, super easy? No.
Yeah, who's beating people up, who keeps ending up in prison because he cannot stop the flashing out.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have a flashback. We see Jimmy arriving home to a bright house where his wife is on the couch watching wrestling on TV. She's so beautiful. And they're
MMA,
so happy.
Not just wrestling, but like bloody, gory, full fight, you know, in the cage MMA.
Yeah, right. She seems to be enjoying it. And the scene is shot with such light colors and vivid, warm. Jimmy and Tia is her name, and she's played by Lillian Bowden. And they begin wrestling on the couch, laughing and sharing intimacy. The flashback ends, and everything changes. The lighting in the house is dark. It's very Jimmy standing there. It's clear how depressed he is. All signs of happiness are gone. He sees Alice out the window. She's getting a ride home from Liz, and instead of coming home, she goes to Liz's. So
and you can see that he's so lonely. Like when he walked in, he was kind of checking to see if anybody was home, you know, after that moment. And really, I think for the first time realizing that he needs company. And then he sees her going next door. And it's funny because they really had to be choiceful about where to start your journey with Jimmy.
Yeah.
And they really chose to start it at that moment where he's starting to realize, like where the door's starting to crack open, right? That he's starting to realize that he's not seeing Alice and that he's not being there for Alice, right? Yeah. And that was a choice that they had to make. You know, where to start a story. I've been listening to Margaret Atwood has a really great masterclass, and she talks a lot about, you know, how it matters where you start a story.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Medias res.
Yeah.
And we are catching Jimmy in the middle of things. He's starting to open his eyes and see that he's let his daughter down. She's counting on someone else now. And so he, lonely, wanting to know how his daughter's doing, he sneaks through the bushes to spy on them. Liz catches him in the bushes, and she has that great line with him.
I'm sorry, but is this, I gotta ask, she goes, I'm sorry, but I gotta ask, is this you forever? And Jimmy says, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it bears repeating. I put it at the top of the episode for a reason, because I think it really sets the whole show up.
Yeah.
Because if this is someone who is in your life, there is a part of you who will have to ask yourself, you know, friendships, relationships, even with your family, you got to know when that moment's going to be of, is this my forever?
Yeah.
Because if so, I don't know if I can keep doing this.
Right. And Liz warns him. She says the time with Alice is fleeting, and he's going to regret it if he doesn't do something to change things. She says, before you know it, she'll be gone. to college. And you'll wish you hadn't screwed it up so bad that she never wants to come home. And she gives Jimmy a plate of food and he leaves. And Liz is right. I mean, good on her for being so direct. And we get to see Derek here, a little comic relief at the end of this kind of heavy scene. And Derek's on the walkway and he realizes Jimmy is probably leaving with his dinner.
I love this exchange. Jimmy goes, dinner's great, and you should get in there and enjoy it. And Derek goes, if there's any left.
Yeah.
By the way, I thought I was done raising kids.
So
thanks
you for
that.
Yeah, it's Derek. Oh.
I mean, just what a gem, right? Because
Yeah.
nobody else could say those things, but like his and Liz's dynamic is so crucial to moving. Like, imagine being Bill Lawrence and being given the gift of Krista Miller in your life so that you can have a character like Liz and you can have her marry someone like Ted McGinley in the show. You have this unbelievable force of plot. Because these people, Derek obviously is more golden retriever than Liz, right? Liz, though, will fucking force shit forward.
Oh, yeah.
And to have someone who believably can tell people, can be judgmental and truthful and out loud like that.
Yep.
I mean, imagine the gift that is for a plot, because she is authentically this person and you believe and love and back and sometimes hate to love this character.
Yeah, and she does it while being supportive.
Oh my God, yeah.
Such an interesting dichotomy, right?
It really is crazy because she is one of these people, and you've met these people in real life, these Virgos, these Capricorns, let's be honest, right? Sometimes a Leo, but almost always a Virgo or a Capricorn. Yeah, I know. I had to go white lady full astrology on this shit, who is constantly doing everything for everybody so that when they turn to you and tell you your business, you are obligated to listen.
Yeah.
Because they carried the load. They know the specifics of what's in it.
Yeah.
I mean, damn, girl.
Yep. So Jimmy the next morning is on the phone with Paul seeking advice on how to mend things with Alice and better support her. And Jimmy, he suddenly has to go, gotta go, because, he's disagreeing with Paul, and Paul is in his bathroom shaving while he's on the phone. And he goes, great, call me up in the morning to agree with me. He's so grumpy, and it's perfect.
Also, I mean, watching a man shave on camera is the most nerve-wracking thing. I always assume there will be blood.
Yeah.
It's like, I think of a razor as like Chekhov talks about a gun.
Yep.
If it shows up, somebody's going to bleed. And I panicked the whole scene. I was like, my heart beating in my chest. But of course, it's just Paul being Paul.
Yeah, just Paul being Paul.
Paul being Paul.
So Jimmy makes Alice an omelet because he now knows, thanks to Liz, that soccer has started. And he wants to send her off with a good meal and plenty of protein. She refuses it. She gives him the cold shoulder and heads to school to go to the weight room for her morning oats.
In this moment, you also have Paul and Liz both pushing Jimmy, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why you need Liz, is because Jimmy wants Paul to like him, but he also thinks of Paul as a mentor. But we see that in the situation Jimmy's in, Paul is not enough to push him out of it. Yeah. Even with his respect and love for Paul and how he wants all the approval from Paul, you kind of need the cold water of Liz. You need Liz, because also Liz gave him a gift by telling him that soccer had started, and she knew what she was doing. She knew that it wasn't going to be enough, but she also knew that if he didn't do it, there was going to be no relationship with Alice.
Yeah. Soccer is really important to Alice, and he needs to get on board.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He needs to get his shit together altogether, but but I love that she gave him that gift.
Yeah.
Because she keeps giving him ropes to pull himself out of the quicksand.
Right.
And Paul's trying too, but it really shows how, like, sometimes you need a community to get you out of your ditch.
Yeah.
Sometimes even people you love can't be the person that you never know which hand you're going to grab. Sometimes you say no a few times first. And I like that they're giving us that in real time.
So then we're back at work. Jimmy is seeing Sean again, his first patient. since he was forced to come back.
Oh my God, that story.
And Jimmy is trying to make up for the horrible session they had the day before. He, in the middle of it, takes a phone call from Grace. And this is right after the session with Sean begins. And he has to answer it because he just asked her to leave her husband. So, yes, it's bad form to take a call in front of your patient you're trying to make up to. But also, it's Grace, and you have to find out if she's okay.
Another great fucking exchange. I have to take this. Of course you fucking do.
Of course you fucking do. Yeah. Oh. Digging his hole deeper with Sean. And so Grace is happy, and this changes everything about Jimmy that morning because she did what he insisted she do and left her husband. She went to Canada to stay with her sister. He's so psyched that he helped a patient by being an honest therapist and forcing them into change and to do what was best for them. And so after he gets off the phone, he confesses to Sean that during his last session, he was probably a little high and a little drunk. And he does recognize that Sean needs help because he keeps beating people up and has been out of control. Sean admits he gets set off and he just snaps. He doesn't really know what happens. He just snaps. And now, since it apparently helped Grace so much, Jimmy thinks he's on the right track with this honesty thing. And he takes Sean to find someone he can beat up with consent.
Psychological vigilante.
It's pretty interesting. You're thinking, part of me as the viewer was like, oh, okay, good. Like, maybe this will be good.
It's interesting. I love that you said that because I didn't think about. I actually remember when I watched the show for the first time. You know, before I was diagnosed with ADHD, I used to run all the time, and it was like, and there would be times where like I would be home, and especially after I had my only kid, but after I had the kid, or my husband would be like, do you want to go for a run? And he wasn't saying it because, oh, you're fat and you're ugly, which is like, you know, what you're going through mentally at the time, but because I get in my head, you know, and I would get on some weird negative cycle track, or like everything would get on top of me and I would feel so stressed out. And because at the time I didn't have therapy, I didn't have medication, and the times that I had tried to do those things, I wasn't ready to have the conversation. And so I would kind of clam up like Sean did in the first episode, where I was like sort of aggressively like, listen, I can't crack any shit open right now. I don't have time to deal with it, was sort of my view, you know? And I think Sean's afraid if he lets a little fall out that God only knows what'll happen, because he's had these blackout fights, you know? So like he's afraid of what's inside him, right? And I do think there's something to like a physical trigger like that, especially for people who are on the spectrum. They say like a physical trigger for that actually does help you get out of your head. It literally knocks you out of your head. And so my husband, who's super autistic, had mentioned at the moment, and I had never thought of it before, of like, I kind of wish therapists could do that kind of stuff, because sometimes that is what you need if you're that closed off. You need something to, if you're not at a place where you can just open up and talk, and some people, it takes a while for them to get there, they still need some kind of therapy.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, I kind of wish people could do that, you know? And so it shows you both the light and the dark sides of Jimmy's crazy unethical approach to therapy.
Yes. It's really coloring out the lines here.
Totally.
And so Jimmy takes him to a place where he gets in the ring and fights a guy, and afterwards...
And he gets his butt beat.
He does.
Which is very fun, because you see Sean's a huge fucking dude, and he's a soldier. So, like, you know, when he goes into these situations, you get the feeling he always knows he can win. And so there's also a level of, like, it's kind of good for him to get the shit kicked out of him. And you wonder if that's something he's maybe been seeking in this fight, in these fights.
Yeah, you kind of wonder if he's wanting to get checked, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And afterwards, Jimmy explains that he thinks if he gives Sean's rage an out, that he will be able to avoid snapping in the future. And that will give them a chance to discover what's happening under the surface that is making him go there in the first place. So Jimmy suddenly panics after seeing his friend Brian, Michael Urie, and they rush away. He's like, we gotta go. And he rushes away with before Brian can spot him.
I love that so much. I love that moment where Sean's like, "Oh, you know, you like, who is that guy?" And Jimmy's like, "He's my best friend." And then they run away.
Yep.
And it's just so funny. And he's like, "Man, you're really messed up." And he's like, "So," or something like, "So are you." Like the two of them kind of throw it back at each other, which is like just delightfully silly and stupid. And again, totally unethical, totally line crossy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And so back at the office, Gabby is outraged when she finds out Jimmy had Sean fight somebody. She says, "That shit was Sean. It's so unethical. I feel like an accomplice just hearing about it." And she changes the subject right away and says, she shows Jimmy the water bottle that she got for Paul because hydration is important. And this water bottle looks just like her water bottle, except it's little. And she says, "It looks like my water bottle had a baby."
And this gives us another insight into Gabby's, that conversation we had earlier with Gabby about hydration, because she says, you know, I read somewhere that people with Parkinson's need more hydration, that it helps minimize the symptoms. And so then you get lots of information of like, okay, so Paul has Parkinson's, Gabby's trying to take care of him, and this sarcasm around hydration probably has a deeper core for both of them.
Right.
Like hydration is a carrier for something else.
Right. Yes.
That we're not talking about yet.
Nope, not yet. So Gabby is also happy to see Jimmy with a little bit of his old spark back, and we get a montage of folks and their activities. Sean sparring, Gabby putting the water bottle on Paul's desk, Alice continuing to give Jimmy a really cold shoulder,
and Jimmy watching Home Alone in the bathtub and finally understanding that meme where the meme.
He's seen that meme everywhere his whole life, but he never knew what it meant. So he understands now.
Oh my God. And I totally forgot to address it because I think for the first episode, I had prepared a lot of the notes. And so some of this isn't like, you know, exactly perfect one for one because it was our first time. But earlier when Gabby's dumping Sean as a patient onto Jimmy, he says, "Oh, I was going to go home and watch Home Alone in the bath. I haven't seen it." And she was like, and then it's such a great moment because no one that you ever do that to, unless they're like an 8-year-old child who's never even heard of Home Alone, would, you know, even with the meme out on the internet, would do this. But he blank faced. He had no idea what she was talking about.
Yeah.
And so she goes, "Oh, that's going to be so funny to you after you've seen it. That's going to make a lot more sense to you after you see it," you know? And so I love that moment in the bathtub where, you know, you get the like, that's where that came from.
Yeah,
So
it is
great.
fun. And I love taking baths and watching movies. I didn't put my TV in the bathroom like Jimmy does, but I bring my laptop in there all the time and watch movies on my laptop or TV shows. I mean, streaming is so great these days that I could watch it whenever.
Oh my God, I should put a TV in my bathroom.
Oh man, it's awesome. I love taking
my
a
house
nice
is
bath.
a catastrophe, but I should show you my bathtub after
Okay.
this. I did because I like to watch Masterclass on my phone while I'm in there, or I like to read, and so I put up a shelf, and it has LED lights in it. So now we've got to like put in an outlet somewhere in there, or we have to like do one of the like extension cords along the seams of the wall or whatever. But yeah. That's relatable, right?
Yeah,
like it's nice to sit in the bath and watch something.
So nice.
Oh, this gave me great ideas.
It's like therapy.
It is like therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I often found, I've heard this for migraines and for congestion, but I have nosebleeds, and they, you know, Chinese medicine believes you're supposed to be cold up top, like cooler heads prevailed, right? That it's not just about like your thinking, it's also about your health. And then like pulling heat down actually is really helpful. And there were times where when I would have nosebleeds, I would just, I mean, most of the time I would sit in the shower because they were really bad. But I would also do baths sometimes, and it's great because it brings the heat down. So it's like you're warm on the bottom and you're cooler on the top. And it helps apparently with congestion and stuff too, and migraines, they say for people. So yeah, that's why like when you have migraines, sometimes they say you can put like a cool cloth on your head, and it helps. It doesn't fix it. But you know, both of us will tell you that, but yeah.
Yeah.
To migraines.
So then we discover Paul had received a call from Sean's dad, and he's furious with Jimmy for making Sean fight. In their discussion, Jimmy reveals that he made Grace leave her husband. Paul expresses worry about how Jimmy is doing. And Jimmy admits he hasn't been great this last year. And Paul's worried that he's not being careful with his patients. And this is scary to him. He says, are you at least trying to be careful? You're not going to burn your career down and take me with you? And here we get the episode title and Jimmy's response, coin flip. And it's just like really honest. Jimmy doesn't know which way it's going to go because he sees that he's been really deviating from any kind of normal therapy, especially with these two patients. And Paul is really worried, and he's not being mean or yelling at him. He's just kind of talking to him, mentor to mentee, about this is scary to me. You could destroy everything I've worked for.
Yes.
And Jimmy's honest answer is like, yeah, I don't know. It could go either way.
And the fact that Paul didn't fire him on the spot, I think, is a remarkable gift.
Yes.
Because what he's doing, we've already addressed, is insanely unethical.
Yeah.
It could get Paul into so much trouble. Of course, I think a part of the thing that makes, I never thought about this till just this moment, but that makes the show kind of brilliant is, Paul is kind of at the end of his journey. And so, I wonder how much of that goes into him allowing Jimmy to spiral like this, or how much of it is just his love for Jimmy and realizing that people, when you need to get unstuck, you boop. And Jimmy's booping everything around him. And that'll come up later. That is a little bit of a spoiler. But there is something to it that's both bad and good. But the bad outweighs the good by a long shot. And if this were real life and not a television show, you'd be like, well, you definitely shouldn't do that. But it's not, you know? And I love that they add this the whole time. Like you said, Paul is being so empathetic and so careful with his wording and really giving Jimmy way more leeway than he deserves and way more kindness than he deserves. And then Jimmy goes to walk out and he goes, wait, this is my office. And Paul goes, that took you way too long.
Yeah.
Like,
way longer than it should have.
Way longer than it should have. That's what it was. Just, they got us, they reminded us, wait, this is still Harrison Ford, guys. He's not just some sweet old man.
Yeah, for sure. So Jimmy wants Sean to remember when he was last happy. And Sean doesn't like being happy because it makes him feel bad, because it makes him remember why he isn't happy. Jimmy confesses that he feels the same way. And Sean's like, yeah, right, really? And Jimmy's like, yeah, and shares with Sean that his wife died. And it seems like a turning point for Sean to start looking at Jimmy as a different person than he saw previously. He's like, oh, this guy's had some shit happen. And so Sean asks if Jimmy is supposed to be telling him this, and Jimmy admits he's definitely not. Therapists don't share. They're there to guide, and it's a boundary that's important when someone's trying to help, right?
Yeah.
So this is showing us how boundaries are already slipping between therapist and patient.
Well, and there's also, I think, this moment where that's almost like the least amount of damage he's done thus far.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, I almost feel like, because, especially for people who are neurodivergent, the sharing and share back is how we show each other we see each other. Mm-hmm. It's our way of pebbling. Like, oh, yes, you shared your sad story with me that had to do with this topic. I have a similar kind of grief here as mine, right? And I think it, between friends, it's a way that people connect and help you.
Yeah.
And make you feel seen and not alone. And so I think there's such interesting spice in this show of the difference between things that even therapists will tell you are important in interpersonal relationships, but that are boundaries that cannot be crossed in therapy because of the nature of the treatment. The treatment has to have beginning and ends for the good of the therapist, mm-hmm. really, as well as for the good of the patient, because this person can't be there for you all the time. They can be there during the prescribed time that you have with them.
Right.
And so it's really interesting because it's almost like the least toxic thing that he does, but it's the first acknowledgement we get that, like, that like now Sean's kind of in this
Yeah.
crossed boundary. Like Sean now knows that boundaries have been crossed and that this isn't good and this isn't healthy therapy. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, I'm in it because I need a solution.
Yeah. So in the morning, Jimmy gets a text from Grace. She is happy at her sister's. He's feeling good about things. He's out to get the paper and he sidesteps the sprinkler this time. He's like, too slow. It's very cute. Things are starting to get better. He gives Alice blueberries for her morning oats. He's very proud of himself for also washing her jersey. She's not pleased. She lets him know.
I love this. I love this scene because one of the things that I like that the show does is they show us, Alice tells him in this moment, it's not enough. It's not enough. You've been absent, and she gives us the timeline that we didn't have before.
It's a really strong scene. It tells us so much with so little real estate, and we get this really powerful message from Alice. Like she's been taking care of herself and him, and needs to let him know that this is too little, too late, dude.
Well, and the backhand of this is if she had spiraled out the way that he did, there would have been consequences. And she didn't have that option because he spiraled out that way, right? Like there was no one there to catch her. Like Liz can do what she can, but she's not Alice's parent.
No.
She is still the neighbor who takes good care of Alice because she loves her. She is, and Alice still is left on her own with this grief. And it really, have you lost a parent? Have we talked about that?
I have.
And, there can be this dynamic sometimes within a family when one parent goes. And I know like and this is very different because we were grown-ups. We were not 17. Mm-hmm. But, when my father died, my mother and my sister had a really rough time. And I remember having a conversation in the parking lot of the bank. I had been called to come and get them because one of them it was my mother, started yelling at my sister and kind of tearing her apart. And the bank manager called me to come and get them. It got so ugly because you have two grieving people who are the worst thing in the world that could possibly happen to them has now happened. And and they are very similar human people and deal with things in very similar ways. And so I remember standing in the bank parking lot being like, hey, she just lost her father. Could you have some empathy? And she just lost her husband. Like, what is wrong with you guys?
Wow.
Because the problem is when you're in grief sometimes, and especially Jimmy is one of them. I mean, they've really amped it up, for the purposes of the show, that his grief took him apart in a way that made him not thoughtful for other people, and especially Alice.
Yeah.
Because Alice he didn't realize that his grief was so big that it did not give her room to live. And I wish that people had the words that this is that Brett Goldstein touch of like, say the thing out loud that nobody ever says.
Yeah.
Because I wish a 17-year-old girl would have the words and the self-realization and the safe space to say to their father in a situation like this, it is not enough what you're doing.
Yeah.
I also lost my mother. Yeah. Because when you're the one in grief, you don't usually have those words.
No.
You just
truly
are furious with each other and things are bad until they get better.
Yeah. And you find other ways of communicating that. And it's usually not anything that someone would be able to understand, and just compounds the trauma usually. Very
Healed people, hurt people, hurt people.
Yeah.
Like, and the reasons why are not as simple as the statement makes it sound.
Yeah.
It's not like Jimmy meant to hurt Alice.
No, he didn't. But he still hurt her. Yeah.
And he's still responsible for that.
One of the things Jason Segel said that I heard him say, he said, it's like that story about you never know how you're going to respond to some crisis, a huge crisis like a family emergency, and like there's all this danger, and what would your dad do? Would your dad stand protect you, or would your dad run away if like a bear was coming after you? And to find out your dad ran away, and then you also get away from the bear, and then later you're together with your dad, and you know this about them, like oh, this is someone that would just run if I needed help. So how do you build that again? How do you build that healing? And it's not easy.
No, but that's where the interest is, and that's why this show is so great.
It is such a good show, yeah. So now we see Sean. He's walking down the sidewalk, and this couple comes out of this store or something, and I think the guy sees the girl smile at Sean. It's my personal opinion.
And
I
Sean,
think that
she definitely did. They definitely made an intentional. She smiled at Sean, and Sean was polite.
he just kind of nods and keeps going, but the guy was like, "Oh, I'm going to show this guy," and he bumps him, and uh, Sean looks like he's going to snap, and we don't see what happens as the viewer. We're like, "Oh." But Sean calls Jimmy. Jimmy comes down to meet him, worried that something really bad has happened. But Sean tells him that he didn't beat the guy up, even though he could see it all in his mind's eye. Instead, he walked away. And so Jimmy invites him to dinner, and Sean's like, "Wait, don't you have a kid to feed?" And he's like, "No, she's actually at a soccer game right now." And Sean's like, "Why aren't you there?" And he's like, "Because I suck," or whatever, you know. And Sean's like, "No, we're gonna go. You're gonna go." And so they are on their way to go see Alice play some soccer, and they get in a traffic jam, of course. They have to run across lawns, and the scene where Jimmy and
It's
Sean,
like Ferris Bueller on slow mo, right?
Yeah.
It's like every they just keep hitting all these obstacles, and then the very last thing is this big ass hill.
this big ass hill, and it's a perfect metaphor. The hill that they're climbing. Jimmy doesn't know that he's going to make it up this hill because it's a big hill, and he's already been running across town, and he's not in great shape from all the partying he's been doing. But Sean's like, "Come on, we can do this," and they kind of help each other up this hill, and they get to
Really, Sean kind of carries him up the hill for a lot of it. Yeah.
yeah, and I love when writers are able to pull that off where they are really talking about more than one thing with a scene like this. But Sean and Jimmy both have a big hill to climb in their life right now, and are they going to be able to do it?
Yeah, and you're not really sure. And I mean, really, up until the bitter end, they really milk that moment for all it's worth, because you're like, there's no way Jimmy's getting up that hill. And like, there's no way Sean can carry him up that hill. Sean's a tall guy. Like, both of them are very tall. The leverage is not good, right? Like, one of the things my husband always likes to joke about is, yeah, you're super strong. You only have to move things 6 inches off the ground, you know, because I'm so short. And it's true. I'm compact, right? So I can put my force into one era, but their weight is all up at the top, and this hill is so steep. You're like, they'd have to crawl. But I mean, they really do. They really give it everything to make it up the hill, and it's so perfect.
Yes, it is. And they do make it to Alice's game.
Yay!
It's a beautiful moment. And honestly, the show could have ended right there, but as shrinking fashion, which you'll come to understand what we mean, uh, every time things going really well in its beautiful moment, count on the other shoe to drop. So uh, Alice's team scores, they celebrate, and then suddenly all hell breaks loose when Grace's husband,
Dun, dun, dun.
Yep, Chilkey Jones, by the way, and he's really good in this role.
So convincing.
Yeah, right.
As that dirtbag.
Yep, and I can't remember which boy band he was in the '90s, but he's one of those.
Oh my God,
I gotta find that again.
We'll bring that back.
It's really, really interesting. So he walks up and starts beating the shit out of Jimmy. Sean tries to stop him, but then Grace's husband starts fighting Sean too, which is a huge mistake because then Sean does lose it and beats the crap out of him. An ambulance comes and takes Grace's husband away, and the police come and they arrest Sean and take him away too. And then Alice walks over to Jimmy, who's holding like cloth to his bleeding nose, and she thanks him for coming to her game. And he says he would have come sooner. It's just that she looks so much like her mom. And it's such a hard thing to see him say to her.
Because she's just watched this shit go down, and she could be like, Dad, you're a fucking mess. Look at what you did. And instead, you see that she's moved by how hard he worked to get to her game.
Yeah.
And she says thank you in the sweetest, most vulnerable way.
Yeah.
I mean, Lukita Maxwell, in this moment, just looked like an open flower.
Yep.
And then he says, I would have come sooner, and your heart swells, and you're like, he's going to say he's sorry. And then he goes, but you look so much like your mom. And you're just like, what?
Yeah. And Alice looks so much like a much older person, and just like that's there, like, yeah.
Yeah, she seems to understand the sentiment.
Yeah, she really understands that, oh, that would be hard because we've lost her, and I'm a constant reminder of her. Every time you look at me, you see her, and no wonder, kind of. But also, it's not her fault she looks like her mom. It's so sad. It's so hard. It's devastating.
Yeah, just seeing her in that moment, a kid carrying so much more than any kid should have to carry.
Yep. Yep. And that is the end of the episode. And for next time, please join us. We'll be discussing season 1, episode 2, Fortress of Solitude. And we'll be talking much more about Harrison Ford and his involvement.
Yay! I love Harrison Ford so much.
I know, me too.
Oh, I love Fortress of Solitude. I'm so excited about that.
It's a good one.
Oh.
So, Holly, would you like to bring us some trivia about the show today?
Yes, I would like to bring you some trivia. So, Jason Segel is the reason that Brett Goldstein is actually in the shrinking cast as well as writing, because he explained to Brett Goldstein that he knew what it's like to be typecast. And he felt like Roy Kent was such a seminal character that he wanted to make sure that this guy had immediate work doing something very different right afterwards to keep him from getting pigeonholed. Because he said basically after like Freaks and Geeks, it was really impossible for him for a long time to find a different kind of role. And that, you know, Bill Lawrence as a mentor basically kept him from spiraling out of control. Although he still really wants to make, like, apparently the Dracula, the musical from Forgetting Sarah Marshall is like a real thing he created, and actually something that both Judd Apatow and I guess eventually Bill Lawrence told him, like, you cannot make this, you cannot do this, like, this will ruin your career. And he's still like, he loves it, you know. And I mean, and so we don't have those people in our life, so from here God only knows, right, like what I will do. But the mom in this show, Lillian Bowden, who we talked about earlier, Tia, Alice's mom, who was Jimmy's wife, is played by Lillian Bowden in these flashbacks. And my husband said the same thing that I mentioned the first time we talked about it, which is we loved Andy Mack. It was my child was obsessed with the show on the Disney Channel, and Lillian Bowden plays Andy Mack's mom. And so for better or worse, every time and she's been in a ton of stuff, and she's fantastic in all of it. She's been on Always Sunny. She's on Murderville regularly. She's so cool. Can't see her without thinking, oh my God, it's Andy Mack's mom. And so I love her actually as Lukita Maxwell's mom. I think that, you know, I found out later they cast Lukita first.
They did.
And then basically cast Lillian, and they couldn't have made them more perfect.
It's so perfect.
They're so perfect, and you're going to get more of that. You know, she's a crack improver. That's why her Murderville stuff is so impactful, because she can play almost any character at any time. And I'm really obsessed with her also because she has this great undercut most of the time, and I can't rock an undercut because my hair is too fine. So it just gives me heartbreaking. But, you know, like, I love her so much, and I love seeing her in this. And then the plot line of Harrison Ford's character, taking it back to BG, my boyfriend, was actually inspired by Brett Goldstein's real life dad.
Yeah.
And so he wrote the character Paul with his dad in mind. And I die.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love Jay Willie so much. And I almost felt like that there is like so much of her in this is incredible. But I think the best Harrison Ford, Jay Willie moment, you know, I felt like they really brought Two Dope Queens, Jessica Williams, into this. And she's also a Daily Show alumni. So, like, talk about somebody who's used to working with some heavy hitting, like, dialogue, and she can write, she can act, she can do all the things, right? But they let her improv a lot with this character. And there's this wonderful moment where she says, do you know what percentage of yourself is water? And Harrison Ford, who they also kind of let do whatever he wants because he's Harrison Ford, goes, I know what percentage of me doesn't give a shit. And I think that's peak
Yes.
peak. I feel like Jay Willie could have written that. You know, she's just amazing.
Yeah.
And then to kind of complete the like 80s to 90s evolution here, I also love they watch Home Alone in this movie.
Yeah.
So my husband's actually from the area of Illinois where all of Home Alone and all John Hughes's movies were shot. So like our first trip there together was just a tour of all the John Hughes stuff, you know, and he was buried in the cemetery right behind my husband's parents' house.
That's wild.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So like I love seeing Home Alone come up. So I mean, you know, Hughes could really have his own podcast devoted to him, but I also love that they brought in a little John Hughes here because it's kind of beautiful and kind of brilliant. So yeah, I think there's just so much in this that's great.
Yeah, there really, really is. It's a rich tapestry.
It is a rich tapestry. And what makes that tapestry so rich is that there's also just absolutely stunningly bad, awful behavior. And for that, we like to introduce a segment called Cringe of the Week.
My cringe of the week this week is that I'm gonna bring up where it started for me. My cringe of the week is pills and prostitutes. You have a 17-year-old daughter upstairs. You cannot be doing drugs at 3:00 in the morning. Like, that is a step too far. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. We all fall apart sometimes, but you do not invite outside people into your house who may not be safe where your children are. And that is wrong. And so my hot take out of our cringe this week of pills and prostitutes, is that I believe in each episode of this show, Jimmy's going to do something unforgivable. So unforgivable that you think there's no coming back from this. And I think literally they must have started every episode in the writer's room with, okay, Jimmy has done this unforgivable thing. What is our unforgivable thing this week? And how are we going to help him come back from it, right? And I think that if he doesn't come back from it, all of us are going to be furious because he has this blessed team around him. I mean, like, you know, the more you get to know.
Such a support group. Yeah.
I mean, from Jump Street, his neighbor's already raising his kids. And instead of calling the police on him, she comes over herself to tell him to go to bed. Her kids are grown. This is a woman who is a parent. And she gets up in the middle of the night to because she knows his wife died and he is not okay. And she gives him all of this grace. And you have Jessica Williams' character, and you have what Paul is doing for him, you know, and you see people give him so much grace that if he doesn't get his shit together, you are never going to forgive him because the people around him are so great. And I've only seen this show one time through, so this is like, you know, I know you're a big rewatcher, but like my hot take is like Jimmy does unforgivable things and we forgive him because the people in his life just like make him better, and there's a vulnerability and a willingness to change, which is important. But you know, but ultimately, I think literally the show's premise, my hot take of the show is Jimmy does something unforgivable and we all find a way to forgive him.
Yeah. And Carina's Cold Water. I have rewatched this show a few times. So, but I want to say I'm constantly surprised by things I previously didn't notice. Like, it happens a lot. And I'm surprised at this point because I have seen it a few times. Like I said, I think that writers are going to continually surprise us with masterful storytelling. And it'll be interesting to see where this first season takes us.
Oh, I love that so much, Carina. And I love it because my hot take's all spicy and your cold water is like, oh, but baby, the storytelling, you know, just come back to the good side of life where we're enjoying this beautiful storytelling.
Right?
Well, and I guess we got to figure out how to end this podcast. This is our first one. So I was thinking, since we're not famous, what should we do instead of plugs?
I did have an idea. This is a deep show,
go for it.
And a lot of people could be triggered by certain content in the story. Sex workers, drugs, alcohol, grief, and we could offer some resources.
Oh my God, that's a great idea. Let's definitely do that. And then I think we should also plug one thing, because the show's all about like the darkest things being contrasted with the lightest things. So maybe we can also plug something that people can go watch, listen to, or read while they're waiting on the next season of Shrinking to come out if they've already seen all the episodes.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, for today, you take the serious one.
struggling with grief and or alcohol and drug abuse, you can find help on this website for substance abuse and mental health from SAMHSA, and that stands for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. They have a specific link for finding treatment, and it is findtreatment.gov. SAMHSA is actually a federal agency that what they do is publish data, they set guidelines, and they provide a lot of funding for evidence-based programs. And I am so for evidence-based whatever in this climate of science denying. So they also provide a crisis website as well as the Find Treatment site, and it is www.samhsa.gov/find-support/in-crisis.
Okay, we can put it in the show notes too.
You'll find it. The crisis help with suicide, ideation, mental health, drug and alcohol issues. I'm pretty sure that also covers some of the mental health situations that could result from grief of losing a loved one, like how Jimmy and Alice and Gabby have lost Tia. When I went to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, which was another option for best chemical dependency resources at the website nida.nih.gov, they recommended SAMHSA site to find treatment. So a lot of these people are getting behind that website to find treatment. I researched some grief resources and arrived at the website sads.org/grief-and-loss-resources/, which lists websites, books, and resources for children. And I also found one more site, and that is www.griefshare.org. And this site boasts to be the #1 grief support group program in the world. So if you're looking for a support group to handle grief, this might be something you should check out.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Carina, for doing the heavy lifting on that this week. We'll try to, if, wherever we end up publishing this, we'll try to make sure we put that kind of stuff in the show notes. But also,
Perfect.
They do a great job at the end of the episodes too, kind of giving resources. So we wanted you to have them from us if you happen to be listening to this and this triggers you, but also, the show has some and there's some wonderful ones out there. So, get some help. If we've learned anything from shrinking, it's that there's help available, even unorthodox help.
Yes.
And then for something light, if you're just looking for something fun, you should listen to Films to Be Buried With. It's Brett Goldstein's podcast. It won't save your life, but it will make the inevitable feel funnier. There's a ton of incredible episodes. I have a million favorites. Amber Ruffin's been on, Judd Apatow, and there's this great crossover episode with Off Menu for the other Anglophiles out there, which is Menus to Be Buried With is what they call that one. And it's got James Acaster and Ed Gamble, who are two of my favorite British comedians. So just go and find someone you like and listen to Brett, and he's going to start the podcast by telling them that they've died, and then he's going to ask them about the movies or the films that made their life special and what movie they would take with them when they go to whatever heaven looks like. It's a hoot. It's a great thing, especially if you like that balance of dark and light, which if you're listening to this podcast, you probably do.
You probably do. Yeah. That's awesome. I'll have to start listening to some of those. Thanks so much. And that is our time. We'll see you next week for Reshrinking the Podcast, Season 1, Episode 2.
Bye, y'all.
Goodbye.
Reshrinking is with Carina Cooper and Holly Hurley Feather. This podcast is produced by HHF Strategy and Carina Cooper, and music is by Sean Shank.